All right, rugby fans, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, always fun.
Today's topic comes from an article I saw over at the southafrican.com,
Oh, yeah.
boldly titled, All Blacks Were Robbed of the 2023 Rugby World Cup title.
Hmm.
So we're going to be unpacking some pretty strong opinions from a couple of All Blacks legends, Steve Hansen and Tana Umaga.
Yeah, some pretty big names in rugby.
Huge names. And it's
Yeah.
not just like, casual water cooler talk after a match.
Right.
We're talking about a former head coach and a former captain.
Yeah, their opinions carry a lot of weight.
They do, especially when you think back to how those Springboks wins in the playoffs. Every single game was just by 1 point,
I know, it's crazy.
including the final
I just
against the All Blacks. So
Yeah.
Hansen comes right out and says that the All Blacks were robbed because of poor decisions that were out of their control.
Mm.
What are your initial thoughts on that robbed claim?
Well, I mean, it's easy to understand the sentiment when you've just lost.
Yeah.
You're coming off that loss.
Still fresh?
It's still fresh.
Yeah.
But Hansen is probably referring to two really specific moments.
Okay.
Sam Cane's red card, which of course they had to play down a man for a big chunk of the final.
Right.
And then those super close missed goal kicks.
Ugh, so painful.
I know. You just think about if those had gone a different way, it could have
Yeah.
been a totally different game. But so was it robbery or just kind of the breaks of the game?
It's making me think like how one decision in a sport as complex and physical as rugby can have such a monumental impact.
Oh, for sure.
Like one red card totally shifts the whole dynamic, right?
Totally.
But Hansen also thinks that this All Black squad is just as good as the 2019 team,
Hmm.
especially in the front row.
Okay.
So if they were that strong, does the robbed argument hold more weight?
Well, it's interesting because if he's saying the team was so strong, then blaming these external factors like the ref
Yeah.
kind of makes you wonder, like, did they really lose because of bad calls, or did those calls just expose some other weaknesses that the Springboks were able to exploit?
That is a great point. It's so easy to blame the ref
Oh, yeah.
after a loss.
Especially in a close one.
Right. But maybe there's more to it. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Tana Umaga's take on the All Blacks aura,
Right.
that whole like invincibility thing.
Like that psychological edge.
Yeah, and he thinks that every loss chips away at it.
Uh-huh.
And now he sees them as vulnerable.
Interesting.
I mean, he even goes as far as to say, every time the All Blacks get beaten, the aura takes a whack. We are now vulnerable.
Wow.
Those are some strong words
Yeah.
coming from a guy who like embodied that aura.
Right.
So do you think there's truth to that claim, like they've lost their edge, or is this just normal ups and downs?
Yeah. I mean, no team can stay on top forever, right?
Of course not.
But I think Umaga is saying more than just, oh, they've had a few losses. He's comparing it to like the rugby development programs in other countries,
Like where?
like Ireland,
Okay.
France, South Africa.
So he's saying those countries are strategically building up their talent from a young age,
Yeah, and it's working.
and it's paying off
Yeah.
on like the international stage.
Exactly.
Wow.
He's implying that New Zealand might be falling behind a bit in how they develop players.
Hmm.
So it's not that they don't have talent,
Right.
but maybe the systems that are in place
Yeah.
aren't doing enough to like nurture and refine that talent in the long run.
So are the All Blacks relying too much on individual brilliance instead of a more cohesive, system-driven approach?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I can see why Umaga might be worried about them now.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think about the future of the team.
For sure. All right. Well, Umaga also talks about Scott Robertson's transition as the new All Blacks coach.
Yeah, big shoes to fill,
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
Huge. And Umaga points out, like, how different the intensity is between Super Rugby and the pressure of, like, international competition.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He talks about the steep learning curve
Yeah,
that Robertson and some of the players are facing.
right. It's not just about playing at a higher level. It's about being able to perform consistently.
Under so much pressure.
Yeah, when the whole world is watching.
So Umaga is saying that the jump from Super Rugby to international rugby is more than just a change in competition level.
Yeah.
It's like mental toughness, leadership,
Yeah,
and that ability to perform when everyone's got their eyes on you.
exactly.
And that ties back into that whole aura thing.
It does.
If the players and coaches are struggling to bridge that gap,
Yeah,
it could make that aura even weaker.
right.
Okay, so we've got Hansen saying they were robbed, Umaga questioning their aura and development systems,
Yeah,
and a new coach trying to figure out this whole international rugby thing.
right.
Where do we even go from here?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts so far?
Well, I think we've just scratched the surface of this Rob thing.
Right.
But it's clear that the All Blacks are at like a turning point. They've had some setbacks, they're getting a lot of scrutiny, and the whole world of rugby is changing around them.
It is.
So the question is, how are they going to respond?
How are they going to respond?
Yeah.
That's the big question.
Big question. Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does. It's like they're forcing us to look beyond just the World Cup result.
Right, like what's happening beneath the surface.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
You mentioned that Umaga compares things to rugby development in other countries.
Yeah,
Can you talk a bit more about that? Like, what exactly is he saying about those programs?
sure.
And how do they differ from what New Zealand might be doing?
Okay, so think of it like building a house. You need a strong foundation.
Okay.
Umaga talks about countries like Ireland.
Right.
They've got these really structured pathways from like grassroots rugby
Okay.
all the way up to the national team.
Wow.
They spot talent early, give them consistent coaching and development, and create like a unified system that supports players throughout their whole rugby journey.
So it's not just about finding raw talent. It's about having like a holistic system to develop it.
Exactly, and that's where Umaga seems to think New Zealand might be falling short.
Okay.
He's not saying they don't have the talent,
Right.
but he's questioning whether their system is really preparing players for what they face at the international level.
Right.
He keeps coming back to this steep learning curve
Yeah.
that some players struggle with.
Yeah.
And I think that highlights a disconnect between domestic and international rugby.
It makes me think about like the different playing styles,
Right.
the intensity,
Yeah.
the tactical stuff.
Exactly.
Like maybe New Zealand's domestic rugby,
Yeah.
while competitive,
Yeah.
isn't really preparing players
Yeah.
for the challenges of the international game.
And you have to remember the competition is tougher than ever.
Yeah.
Teams like Ireland, France,
Yeah.
and of course the Springboks, they've
Yeah.
stepped up their game massively. They've
Uh.
closed the gap. And that puts huge pressure on the All Blacks to evolve.
So this robbed narrative
Yeah.
becomes about more than just one game.
Right.
It's about a shift in power
Exactly.
in international rugby.
And that's where Umaga's point about the All Blacks aura is so interesting. If other nations are catching up in terms of talent, strategy, and physicality,
Yeah.
that psychological edge that the All Blacks have enjoyed
Right.
might start to disappear.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
If the All Blacks start doubting themselves and their opponents sense that weakness,
Yeah.
it could really affect their game.
Confidence is huge in any sport,
Oh, yeah.
but especially rugby.
Huge.
If they lose that aura,
Yeah.
if they start second-guessing themselves,
Yeah.
it could impact everything.
Okay, so back to Scott Robertson.
Right.
He's got a big job ahead of him.
Yeah.
He's not just got win games.
Right.
He's got to deal with all of this.
He's got to revitalize the team's mentality
Yeah.
and maybe even rethink their approach to the game.
It sounds like he needs to be more than a coach.
Oh, yeah.
He needs to be like a strategist, a psychologist,
Yeah,
like a cultural architect for the All Blacks.
I think so.
But should we go back to the robbed claim itself? Like, look at the specifics of that World Cup final.
I think we have to.
Okay, let's do it. Like, put on our analyst hats.
Right.
Picture this. You're in the stands.
Yeah.
You can feel the tension.
It's electric.
Every scrum,
Yeah.
every tackle.
Yeah.
It's a battle.
It's...
Where do we even begin?
Let's start with Sam Cane's red card.
Okay.
Early in the second half,
Right.
All Blacks have a small lead,
Yep.
high tackle,
Uh-huh.
ref goes to the TMO,
The tension is killing me.
and then boom, red card.
Yeah.
All Blacks are down a man
Yeah.
against a fired-up Springboks side.
I remember that moment.
Oh, yeah.
Crowd goes wild.
Everyone's going crazy.
Commentators lose their minds.
Yeah.
You could feel the momentum shift.
Oh, yeah.
Was it the right call, though?
It was tough.
Yeah.
Split-second decision.
Huge impact.
Huge.
Some people say Kane was reckless.
Right, player safety first.
Right.
Others say it was harsh,
Yeah.
that the red card gave the Springboks an unfair advantage.
It's one of those moments that just sparks endless debate.
Oh, yeah.
Fans arguing
Replays.
every angle.
Yeah.
The letter of the law.
That's rugby.
It is.
It's a sport that gets people fired up.
Yeah, but beyond the red card itself,
Right.
we have to look at the impact it had on the match.
Yeah.
How did it affect the All Blacks game plan, their morale?
Right.
Did the Springboks take advantage?
Good question.
That's like chess, right?
Yeah.
One move
Uh-huh.
changes everything. Did the All Blacks adapt well to playing with 14 men?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
They showed resilience.
Okay.
Their defense was good for a while.
Yeah.
But that extra man
Yeah.
gave the Springboks a real advantage.
Right.
They controlled the ball, set the pace,
Yeah.
and wore down the All Blacks.
Okay, and let's not forget those missed goal kicks. It felt like every time they had a chance to extend the lead or even win, they just missed.
Do you remember that feeling?
Oh, yeah.
The whole stadium groaning.
Every All Blacks fan.
Yeah, just heartbroken.
And in the end, those missed points made all the difference.
It's brutal, right?
It is.
A 1-point game?
Yeah.
Just a few inches? Could have changed everything.
It's crazy.
But can we really blame the players for those missed kicks?
I mean, think about the pressure they were under.
Yeah.
The weight of the world on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Every rugby fan watching.
That's whole world.
Yeah.
It's a test of nerve skill, mental strength.
And maybe a little bit of luck.
Maybe.
Rugby can be a game of inches of those crazy bounces.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like fate. But we can't forget about the Springboks.
Right. They didn't just get lucky.
No.
They played their game.
They did.
Took their chances.
Yeah. And won.
They earned that victory.
They did, regardless of what happened with the All Blacks.
Right.
So it's more complicated than just robbed.
It is.
It's about the ref, the players' mental strength, and how well the Springboks played.
Exactly.
But there's still more to this story, right?
There is.
We've talked about the final, but this robbed thing also makes us think about the All Blacks as a team, their identity, and their future in this crazy world of rugby.
It's changing all the time.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think we need to talk about the state of the All Blacks as a team.
Man, we've really gone deep on this robbed thing.
We have.
Analyzed the final, talked about the Springboks, heard what Hansen and Umaga have to say.
Right. It's a lot to digest.
It is, and it makes you think about the future of the All Blacks. Yeah, they're definitely at a crossroads.
So where do we even start?
Well, I think the first thing to recognize is that they're in transition.
Yeah.
New coach, new players, and the game itself is changing so fast.
It's like they're sailing into uncharted waters.
Yeah, exactly.
They've been so dominant for so long.
Right.
And now they're facing all these new challenges.
That they've never really had to deal with before.
Yeah, and that's where those insights from Hansen and Umaga become so important.
Right. They're not just complaining. They're actually offering some guidance.
Yeah, let's start with Umaga's point about development pathways.
Okay.
He says other countries are catching up because they're systematically developing talent.
Yeah, from a young age.
So what does that mean for the All Blacks, practically speaking?
Well, they need to take a hard look at their own systems.
Right.
Are they finding the right talent?
Yeah.
Are they developing those players effectively? Giving them the skills and experience they need to succeed at the international level?
Okay. And are they building a culture of excellence that goes beyond just the national team?
It sounds like they need a major cultural shift.
Yeah.
Like back to basics.
Right.
Build that pipeline of talent.
Yeah.
So they can compete with the best.
Exactly. And it's not just about the physical skills.
Right.
It's mental toughness.
Yeah.
Tactical awareness. Leadership.
Right.
They have to prepare those players for the pressure of playing for the All Blacks.
And that brings us back to the aura.
Yeah.
If other teams are catching up, that psychological edge could fade.
It could.
How do they get it back?
I think it starts with accepting the challenge.
Okay.
They got to acknowledge that things are different, learn from their mistakes,
Right.
and recommit to being the best.
So not clinging to the past.
Right.
But evolving, adapting.
And finding that hunger again.
Yeah, that's what made them great.
Exactly.
And it's about leadership.
Yeah, Scott Robertson's role is crucial.
He has to shape the team's identity.
Right.
Build that winning mindset.
Yeah.
And guide them through this transition.
He needs to be more than just a coach.
Yeah, like a visionary.
Right.
Someone who inspires the players.
Yeah, to be their best.
He needs to create the right environment.
Okay.
Where players are challenged, supported, and empowered.
So what about this whole robbed thing? Does it even matter anymore?
I think it's done its job.
Okay.
It's started a conversation.
Yeah.
Made us analyze the game.
For sure.
And shown us what the All Blacks need to work on.
Okay.
Now it's time to move on.
Look to the future. See how they respond.
They have a legacy to uphold.
Yeah, but the game is changing.
It is.
And they need to keep up.
It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
See how they evolve.
Yeah.
See if they can get back to the top.
That's what we love about rugby.
Right.
It's passionate.
Intense.
And always changing.
And the All Blacks are at the heart of it all.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
any
final thoughts for our listeners?
I think the question isn't whether the All Blacks were robbed.
Okay.
The question is, how will they respond?
Right.
Will they let these challenges defeat them?
Yeah.
Or will they come back stronger?
Only time will tell.
It is going to be an exciting journey.
It is. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Keep those conversations going, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the world of rugby.